Are your feet really happy with you, as Subham Desai just said? They probably aren't. A lot of us have negated our feet for a really, really long time. In fact, all of you watching this video right now should take a look at your foot right now and see what is it like. Is your foot like this? Like most of us have worn shoes throughout our lives and our feet get compressed. It's like tying your hands. If you tie your hands up for like 20, 25, 30, 40 years, how many ever years, and then you try to open it out, they won't really get the actual range of motion. Your fingers won't open out, you won't have this grip, and your hands like this are quite useless. That is exactly what's happened with our feet over the years. Our feet are meant to be like this, like in Aliens. If you see people from tribal areas, their feet are just generally wide spread out. And that's actually one of the first things I look at people when they come to me for consultation or they ask me, how can I perform better? I get them to take off their shoes, I get them to squat, I get them to walk, I get them to jump, and I see if they're missing out on certain parts of their feet. If certain parts of his feet are not, his or her feet are not activated, that means you want to have complete control over all your fingers, all your toes, and you should be able to do these things. You should be walking wide instead of close, and this has a lot of advantages for you. With respect to powerlifting, you just grip the ground better, because, and the way I actually learned this is because of a handstand. When I was doing my handstands initially, my hands were like this. Now I spread it out wide. I try to grip as much of the ground as possible, and it comes more onto the fingertips, and there's a lot more control. And when I started realizing this, I realized that if I improve my footwork, my squat is going to improve. My squat improved, my deadlift improved. Then this went on to barefoot running. When I was doing barefoot running, I felt parts of my feet just pop up. I did not have this popping up, guys. I did not have this popping up. My calves, there are parts of my calves which have developed over time. I don't have gigantic calves because I don't really train them for a bodybuilding purpose, but the overall anatomical structure of the calf has become more complete, and that's because you're running while engaging your toes, which are supposed to be engaged. A lot of people are running like this. Your basic grounding, your basic engagement of the glute happens when you're basically pushing this. You push this into the ground, you push this into the ground, your glutes are engaged. And people don't push into the ground. If you're squatting with shoes and your shoes have a lot of heel, you're probably not squatting right. You're probably not, there's a lot of energy leak and you're not gripping the ground the right way. We have Khurana here, so if you see his foot, all of this is like this because he's worn shoes for years. Now he's been actively working on making this wider. So I have him walk barefoot, stretch your feet out wide, and you're going to try and walk barefoot, keeping them wide. Now there's a new range of motion that's going to come into your toes. So what I like to do for people who are getting introduced to this, there's a lot you can do for footwork, a lot of exercises, and generally movement barefoot, a lot of movements, climbing, jumping barefoot really helps your feet. But in case you don't really have control over your toes so far, you can start with pushing this into the ground tight, and you want to create that arc. You have to push into the ground and you want to have 3 points of contact here. You 1, 2 and 3. Before even that, just try to push into the ground. You'll feel your glutes engage when you stand up. With your toe, you're going to feel your glutes engage. So now you're going to sit down, you're going to push with your toe, and you're going to get your toes up, then you're going to take your toes down, you're going to push this up. You're going to do this a couple of times. When you start getting used to it, it just becomes more comfortable. You have to think of this as forgetting how to use a certain body part. So if you're a right-handed person and you try to brush with your left hand or you try to cut an onion with your left hand, you're not going to be very effective at it. That's because your brain does not really know how to use it, or it's forgotten how to use it. So I use my left hand for a lot of things, but I started using my right hand for brushing, for cutting onions. So after I broke my hand, I completely lost function of this hand for almost 5 years. So now I do things with my fingertips so that I have better functioning overall. I brush with both my hands, I cut vegetables with both my hands, and all these things are basically optimizing yourself for better function overall. And as an athlete who's looking to perform better, who's looking to box better, who wants more proprioception and better control over his body, this makes a lot of difference. But coming back to footwork, what I'll have you do next is I'm going to you're going to pull your ankle onto your knee. You're going to take this hand, you're going to pull one finger after the other into your toes. This might hurt you initially, and with time it just gets better. Bear with the pain, take this in all the way in, and you work on your ankle. Your ankle mobility should not be neglected, because your range of motion of your squat is definitely going to change. If you have mobile ankles, you will not get injured. And so some rotations, one side, then some rotations the other side, up and down 5 times, up and down 5 times. Then I pull my fingers in and I try and open out my toes. So what this is doing is it's actually just stretching out. It's like stretching out your fingers. It's just stretching out your toes nicely. Okay, I repeat this with the other foot. I don't do as much footwork anymore because I think now it's been a year since I've been doing this. So overall, the feet have just become better. You can use certain tools that I use as well. I'll put up a few pictures so that you can just see if you want them. Do the same thing with the other leg. Up and down 5 times, sideways 5 times, some curve, some turns on one side, then the other side around. Then you pull your fingers in and you work on getting your toes more mobile. Now once you've done this and you stand up, you suddenly just realize your feet are wider. So yeah, I have the foot of what a normal person would call an alien. And eventually once you start getting into this more into details, I do things like going down on my toes, holding this position. Then I try to stretch out my toes and I try to see where the activation is there. So if you see how my toes are engaged here versus how my toes are engaged here, I still have less function on these two fingers, and it's improving every single day. So once you've got a good idea of how footwork has to work for you and how you should work on mobility, you'll start doing things where you'll be balancing with only your toes. You'll go on to a certain angle, you'll hold this angle, you're going to balance this, you're going to hold this angle, you're going to balance this. Now this is all your toes. Now if you try and take your knees out, you realize you're involving the smaller fingers a lot more and you don't know how to. So if you get into balance or movement or anything of those sorts, you'll suddenly realize, oh shit, I'm not being able to balance because I don't have control over my toes. So slowly and steadily you move towards this, and I probably should make another video for that. But guys, focus on your footwork. It's going to improve the way you run, it's going to improve the way your calves look, it's going to improve the way you squat, and it's basically going to improve every bodily function. We have been walking wrong for so many years. We have structural imbalances because of our feet not being utilized properly. Just think of it, if your hand was like this for 20 years, would you be optimally using your hand? Or if it was like this, if it's stretched out where the position was meant to be? It's the same thing with your foot, it's the same thing with every part of your body. If you don't correct this right now, you'll probably face a lot of problems in the future, and you may or may not want to consider my advice. It might be helpful to you. If it's not, negate it, throw it out of the bin. If it's useful to you, research some more, understand some more, and comment below and let me know what questions you have. I'll make more videos on this very soon.